So in Chapter 11, we talked about how Andrew Jackson was president, and at the end of his presidency, he helped Martin Van Buren, his vice president, become the president. Well, when Martin Van Buren became president, the country went into a depression. So, country goes through a depression and they struggle, and the people are ready for a change. They nominate a guy named William Henry Harrison as the candidate. He was a war hero, and he was well liked by most of the people, but he was 68 years old. They chose a guy named John Tyler to be his vice president candidate, and their slogan was Tippecanoe and Tyler too. And Tippecanoe is the location of a battle that William Henry Harrison had won. So this guy's popular, he's a war hero, but he is pretty old. 68 is old, especially for this time. So the Democrats made fun of William Henry Harrison. I know you guys have seen commercials on right now because of the election where both sides are talking trash on the others. And this is one of the first elections where trash talking plays a pretty big part. So the Democrats make fun of William Henry Harrison. They say that he lives in a log cabin and sits on his front porch drinking alcohol all day. They're basically trying to say this guy is a drunk. Well, actually, he's pretty rich. He's got 3,000 acres of land. But instead of getting upset about the trash talking, he decides to use it to his advantage. And he decides if they're going to call him a drunk who sits around all day and, does normal stuff, he's going to use that to his advantage. And he had these giant parades where they would pull him through the town on like a float, like a log cabin. And this made him much more relatable. The people who were voting saw this guy who looks like them, and they're saying he does regular people stuff. So they made it out like he was a man of the people. So now he's a war hero, and the regular citizens can relate to him. And what happens is he ends up winning this election pretty easily. He's so popular, and they do such a good job with his campaign that he wins the election, and the Whig political party also takes the majority of seats in Congress. So William Henry Harrison takes office, but it is difficult running for president. Giving all of those speeches, going around the country is exhausting. And it's time for him to give his inauguration speech, and some people see that he is feeling sick. They tell him, you know what, delay it. You can do it another day. He refuses to delay it. It's cold and it's raining, and he wants to prove he is healthy enough and young enough to be the president. And he gives the longest speech ever given by a president for an inauguration. He talks for almost 3 hours, standing in the rain and the cold. What happens is he gets sick and he ends up dying. He was only president for 1 month. William Henry Harrison was the first president to die in office. And when the president dies, the vice president becomes the president. So, John Tyler was a faithful Democrat. Then he switched to the Whig Party. And what happens is he's been on both teams, the Democrats and the Whigs. And that makes it hard for either one of those teams to fully trust him. So one of the conflicts we have going on between the United States and Great Britain is a boundary dispute about where the boundary of Maine and Canada come together. So we're arguing over who actually owns that property. And it's about to turn into a war. The British ambassador, Lord Ashburton, met with our Secretary of State, Daniel Webster, to try to work out a compromise. So they're arguing about 12,000 square miles, and both countries, Great Britain and us, want the entire thing. But after a long talk, the British agree they will take the smaller portion. They'll take 5,000 square miles if a road gets built and it does not obstruct some of the routes they normally need to travel and ship things. So we get more of the land, but we have to agree that this road is going to be built and they're going to have access to it. So it ends up being a pretty good agreement for us. We get the bigger portion of it as long as we allow them to have this access. Okay. So expansion is the big issue of the next election. A guy named James K. Polk believed in something called manifest destiny. And destiny means something that is meant to happen. Manifest destiny meant that it was the country's destiny to expand all the way from the East Coast to the West Coast. So James K. Polk wants the country to expand quickly. Henry Clay, the other candidate, he was the Speaker of the House before, he believes the country should grow, but he thinks it should grow more slowly and controlled. So James K. Polk wins the election. It's close, and when he takes office, he says, I promise to expand the country quickly. That's what I'm going to work to do. So we have another dispute over some territory known as the Oregon Country. And the Oregon Country goes all the way up from Alaska down to California. The United States and Great Britain had a temporary agreement saying that both countries could settle in this area. So we were both agreeing to share it, but as more and more people move in, that temporary agreement is no longer going to work. The land-hungry Americans began moving in, claiming it as ours, similar to what we did with Texas, where we moved in, they were letting us, have the area, and eventually we fought for it. But in Oregon, things go a little bit different. So as the American population grows, this dispute is getting more and more tense, and James K. Polk has a decision to make. He tells the American people that he's going to take everything up to the 54-40 degree line, and his slogan is 54-40 or fight. So he's basically drawing a line, saying everything up to this point is ours or else we're going to fight. So he meets with the British, and he actually agrees to take less than the line that he had drawn, but it keeps us out of war. So he gets less than he wanted, but he gets to avoid a potential conflict. Okay, guys, so that was a shorter lesson. I need you to open up chapter 13, lesson 1, and knock out the worksheet.